It's always a pleasure, Kim. Never a chore.
Very true. So we're a day early, depending on which way you look at it.
Yes, we are. We are early, and we're late at the same time. And you know, the reason for that is because we've been mega busy. You've been doing all sorts of training for banks and all sorts of people. And tomorrow you're going somewhere really interesting, but that's top secret, so we can't talk about that, right?
Not just yet.
So today we're going to talk about mastering your mindset, right? Because that's the company name, right? Master Mindset, and there are lots of things that actually help you to master your mindset. So we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about mindset factors in professional services. We're going to talk about why we should master our mindset and 5 keys to do it. And we're going to talk about our favorite, which is the secret to reframing negative thoughts as well. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. So Kim, to kick off with mindset factors in professional success, yeah, I think that's a big one. You know a lot about that.
Yeah, it is a big one, and I guess the one thing that, you know, whoever's book you read, whichever leader or visionary you go and look at, they all talk about the power of mindset and the fact that whether we believe we can or we can't, we'll probably be right. And so for me, one of the key things that I focus on and have done for a lot of years is how to choose my mindset. You know, things are going wrong. If I think I'm having a bad day, funnily enough, I'll have a bad day. So being able to go back and look at that. And for me personally, I choose quotes. So I go and look for a quote every day to help me choose my mindset for the day and to realign myself with where I want to go versus where I might feel I'm heading.
Right. It's I know you're big into these quotes, right? But like it's really tough for people at work and in their careers. And you know, I mean, when you work for a corporation, it's a very difficult thing because you've got all, you know, it's difficult because you've got all this pressure, haven't you? And to, you know, create a healthy mindset, you really need support from the rest of the business and the business unit that you're in, right?
Yeah, and I think you also need to be clear with where it is you're heading and what it is that you're looking to do. More often than not, we get sidelined by our own perception, and our perception becomes our reality. Like, it becomes 9/10 of the law. If we believe it to be true, it's true. And more often than not, it's what we're telling ourselves that actually is causing the biggest problem in life. And we'll have those moments where it doesn't matter what we're saying to ourselves, it might not align to what anybody else is thinking. I know certainly for me, when I was in corporate life, it didn't matter how many awards or accolades or amounts of praise I got, I still didn't think that I deserved any of them and still felt relatively hopeless. And that's because you can't always find that motivation outside of yourself if you can't understand it inside of yourself.
Yeah, it's very tough for a lot of people. And I think the first step with any problem is actually understanding that you have a problem. And for a lot of people, they may not even understand that they've actually got a problem. And that's the thing. I think, you know, when you look at, for example, America and how people are really miserable in their jobs, like I think they did a survey. I think it was like, was it 70% of people like just don't like their jobs, right? That's basically what this survey said a few years ago. So it's like, well, if you don't like your job, then clearly you've got a mindset issue because you're not happy and you're not grateful at work. You're not grateful for your job, probably, in many cases. So that's really going to create a bad atmosphere around you, and then you're not framing that in the right way, which we're going to sort of talk about a bit more in a minute, you know.
And I guess some of it can be, you know, if you're really unhappy in your role, maybe what you need to think about is what would it need to look like for me to be happy in it? And how do I move towards that? Because often we can feel stuck where we are, and we often feel stuck because we don't really know where we want to go. So instead, I did this many years ago. I made one of the largest career disastrous moves of my life. I up sticks, moved across country to an area I didn't know anybody, bought a house, go big or go home, and started a job that I hated. And I was there for 3 months, 2 of which were my notice period. And I was very lucky that somebody from a previous organisation came back and got me. But I realised in that moment that actually I had been busy running away from what I had, not running towards what I wanted. And actually, we often do that. We often think about what we don't want. And therefore, when we're in that mindset, when we're thinking about what we don't want, anything else that comes along feels so much better. And we start looking at it in this rose-tinted glasses like I did. I looked at this, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Right up my street. My name's written all over it. It's sales. I love sales. My background, as you know, for the first 20 years was in sales. But actually, when I got there, it wasn't sales as you knew it. I like something out of Star Trek. It was an administration team. There's nothing wrong with an administration team. They do an amazing job. But I was used to going out and having to win deals every single day, every single minute of every day. It was large numbers, big sales opportunity. And now we were in the support administration, where actually our role was to ensure that we onboarded other organizations that were going to be tied agents to us. And that was a lot more detail. It was a lot more dealing with the regulators and the interaction. And therefore, if you got one on board a week, it was to be celebrated. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not sure that I'm the right personality fit for this particular role. And I mean, for the poor souls, we're going back nearly 20 years, and I feel for them even today. I remember on day one going in and I was still waiting to kind of get all my logons and everything, and I answered the phone and somebody said, can you send me a Form A? And I was like, of course, can I have your email address? We'll get it over to you. And turns to the person next to me. I was like, could you do me a favour? Could you email a Form A to this address, please? And we don't do that here. And I'm sorry? We don't do that here. What we do is take this piece of paper over here, and when you fill out your message, you write down that I want to send an email to this person. I put the email address in. I put the Form A that I want to send it to. And I was like, And so then you walk over there to that in tray, and you put the piece of paper in the in tray. And then 3 times a day, we go and collect the in tray and we divvy out the work, and then one of us will action it. And I went, right, okay, let me just check I've got this right. So I fill out this form, by which point we could have emailed the Form A. I walk over there and put it into a tray, could probably send it the second time. In a couple of hours, you go and collect the tray and divvy the work out. Could have gone 3 times, and then it might come back to you and you'll action it. 4 times. She went, yeah. I was like, right. She went, it's just how we do it now. Not anymore. That is the least lean process I've ever heard in my life. That's ridiculous. And so it totally changed their working day-to-day practice. And what used to take 90 days to onboard, we got down to 28 days because we took out all these silly processes that just been there forever, but didn't actually add any value. But even though we were making progress and you were turning things over, there was an element of actually what I need to understand first is what is it I was really looking for? Where do I see my joy? Where is it that I get up and go, as long as this is part of my everyday, then I'm going to be really happy. And for me, working with other people is what gives me joy. If I do too much work on my own, I go a little bit stir crazy. I mean, nobody needs to be on their own with this head, to be fair. So I think, being able to talk to somebody else and to just interact, I know that's really important. Now, sometimes you have to work on your own. Sometimes with some of the things that we're doing at the minute, we've got to get into the detail and you've got to be structured. But I know that I need to intersperse that with being able to talk to other people. Otherwise, it's going to impact my motivation. It's going to impact my mindset. But I had to really learn a lot about who I was as a person and what's important to me to enable me to now have better decisions, make better choices about the types of work that I want to do and the types of work that really aren't for me. Got it.
Well, that's fantastic. I think that leads into the next one quite nicely. So, you've pretty much given the top reason, happiness, right? Like why we should master our mindset. is happiness, right? Like if you're not happy, then you need to revisit the reasons why you're not happy. But we're going to give like 5 keys to mastering your mindset. But I think it's important we sort of have a little chat around why we need to master it.
Yeah, no, and it's a great point around being happy. It always reminds me of a quote that I believe was from John Lennon, who said that when he went to school, and I think it's reported that he was 5, he was given an assignment around what he wanted to be when he grew up, and his response was to be happy. And the teacher said, "You don't understand the assignment." And he was like, "No, you don't understand life." And I remember I love that one because it makes me think, you know, if I can achieve that for my little girl, if I can instill in her that her purpose in life is to be happy, to be kind, you know, to not be happy at the expense of other people, but equally to not be unhappy herself because she's not willing to create some boundaries. And it's about getting that balance. I think once we have that, once we understand where it is we're going and why it's important to us to get there and what's our purpose, and that can lead to a whole raft of debate as well, can't it? Like, you know, what is our purpose? But again, reminds me of another quote. Funny that, because I do love a quote.
Are you quoting someone else? No, stop the quote.
Because is one of my favourites, and his view is that the meaning of life is to find our gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away. And for me, the two align so beautifully to, 1, why happiness is important, and 2, why our mindset is important. I'm going to stop quoting people now.
No, you're all right. I like to quote you. You gave this quote the other day. You said something like, I got it. I know. You said amateurs compete and professionals partner. I think that was I might have been confused on the last word, but I think that was it.
Professionals co-create, but to be fair,
co-create.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, I like that one. That was good. So in terms of what, you know, why we should master our mindset, right? Because then you begin to create the life that you want, because each of us, we have all these different elements in our lives, right? And some of them may not be working for us, and they're not going to work for us unless we master our mindset first, because then we can focus on each element of our lives, which gives us joy. And then we can basically have a more, I'm not going to say a balanced life, because Michael Tobin, he hates the balanced lifestyle thing. I think it's more like a work-life integration. We can have a balanced work-life integration, right? Is probably how I would describe it.
Yeah, I guess for me, and I suppose it depends on how we take the word balance. I mean, we could take it literally as in they're equal, or just that they are in balance with how much time we want to spend in each of them. That doesn't mean to say it has to be equal. It has to be right for us. And I think this is what we're here to do. We're here to design our life, and what my life might look like could be very different, probably will be very different to what somebody else's life would look like. But as long as it's playing to my purpose, my values, and as long as I'm not being unkind or hurting others, then actually how I choose to live it really probably is down for me to determine, as long as I say, you're not doing it at the detriment of somebody else.
Yeah, I agree. So in terms of the 5 keys to mastering our mindset, I mean, first of all, you know, I'm big into exercise and a healthy diet and these kind of things, as you are, right? So, you know, that's number 1. Yeah. Healthy lifestyle is number 1 as far as I'm concerned. You got anything to add on that?
I think having a healthy lifestyle is important. It probably for me isn't my number 1, but it's in the top 5. But I think for you and I, we probably go at things ever so slightly differently. And I guess that's back to that earlier point, which is it's about having our own lives in balance that work for us. But I do think that, you know, when I've talked to people over the years, and we're doing this now nearly 30 years, what I've found is the 5 we're going to talk about are the ones that form everybody's list in some order of that top 5, and that seems to create that overall balance. Yeah,
very much so. I mean, I think you know, it all could be actually, you could bring spirituality into mastering your mindset, but I like to keep it separate. I think if you're suffering and you're at a bad place, you kind of need to talk to someone. And you know, if that's a counselor or a priest, or, you know, whomever or a yogi or whatever, whomever you choose to speak to, I think that's very, very important. But that's not part of this conversation. So I think really reframing your thinking is the next one, and you're big on that. I'm really finding that really useful in my life. It's a fantastic skill to have, to be able to look back and go, oh, well, actually, I'm looking at this in the wrong way. Maybe I'll, you know, you had an example, didn't you, the other day about being stuck at home, and you said, well, I'm not stuck at home. I'm safe at home, is what you said.
Yeah, and I guess it's around the labels that we use, because very often the label that we're choosing to use will determine whether or not we're viewing something as positive or negative. So, you know, that example was about where we are in lockdown. So I could say, you know, as a single mum, here I am stuck at home, can't go anywhere, can't get any support, have to just keep going. Or I can say that I'm safe at home. I'm at home because I'm making sure that I'm looking after me and my little girl, and we're doing our bit to try and keep everybody else safe as well. Depending on which one of those labels I choose is going to have a massive impact on my psyche, my psychology, how I show up and how I feel about what's going on right now. And so what I try and do with everything is have a look at what label am I using and how well is it serving me? Because if it isn't serving me well, is there an alternate view? And, you know, I use this all the time and probably annoy the living daylights out of everybody, but I use this quite a lot. If I said, you know, looking at the same book, if I tell you there's nothing written on the cover, the more I say there's nothing written on it, the more you'll go, Kim, there's clearly words here. But if I turn it round to show you what I can see, there's nothing written on the book. The fact is we're viewing exactly the same thing. We're just viewing it from a different standpoint. And that's because we live in a world of polarity. For every up, there's a down. For every left, there's a right. So when we look at something and when we believe our view of it, actually seeking to understand, is there an alternate view, can really change things. It can really allow us to cling to something else. And I guess the other thing in reframing is to focus on the things that we can control. So with lots of things in life, you can't control them. You know, when we come out of lockdown, not in my control. There's nothing I can do. I could get very upset about it. It's not going to change what happens. It's not going to change when I'm allowed out. So instead, I do my best every day to go, is this something that is in my control or outside of my control? If it's in my control, make a decision, make a choice, and move in that direction. If it's outside of my control, I do my best to park it and go, do you know what? Worrying about it isn't going to change anything, but it will change me, and it will change how I show up. So instead, I'm going to park that somewhere else. You could say I'm a bit of an ostrich. I'll put my head in the sand, park it over there. I can't do anything with it. And I'm going to focus instead on something that I can do. And focusing on that thing that I can do can become the life raft in the muddy, stormy waters of my mind for all the things that are out of my control, dependent on where I am in my life.
Yeah, I agree 100% on that. I think, you know, Michael Tobin says exactly the same thing. Loads of successful entrepreneurs like you also say the same thing. So on to the next one, right? It's kind of related to reframing our thinking. It's focusing on our strengths. So, I mean, I look at this quite in my own way. I sort of, say I'm doing a task and I've never done it before. I will, and I feel like, you know, I'm really struggling to do this. Then I will think about something that I'm really good at, and I will borrow the confidence and the success that I've had with that other thing, and that really just helps me. What's your view on focusing on your strengths?
Yeah, I think sometimes, and maybe this is just the way we've been brought up in society, we try and make everybody good at everything. And all that does is lead us to feel not very good at everything, because you can't be. And actually, one of the things that I learned as a leader was that I didn't need to be good at everything. What I needed to do was find people that were brilliant at it and be confident enough that just because they were better than me at that thing didn't mean to say that I was in any way at risk of being able to build my career and my credibility, because my role was to help them be the best they could be, help them turn the volume up on their strengths, and realize that collectively as a team, it's the combination of us all that makes us successful. And you know better than most, I should never be allowed near any form of sporting analogy, but I've used this one a lot over the years. And that is like, you know, if you're a team of footballers, and I'm going to clearly show my age and my lack of football knowledge, but if you were a team of footballers, you wouldn't want all of them to be David Beckham, because you'd have nobody in defence, you'd have nobody getting it around. It would be a rubbish team. So having a football team where everybody knows their strengths and plays to those strengths and works together collectively, what you end up with is the power of the team. And I think that's where we need to get to in life, is we need to have a look at it and say, actually, what are my strengths? And who are the people in my tribe, in my team, that actually are strong in the areas where I'm not? And am I strong in the areas where they aren't? And therefore, collectively, we are stronger. The sum of the parts is always greater than the sum of the individuals.
Yeah, I agree massively. Like, no one can be good at everything, right? And doing things that you don't really like. I mean, in a small business, and perhaps in your current job, you may have to do things that you don't like, right? But at the end of the day, you're working towards expanding the things that you really enjoy doing, because they're going to bring you more joy. So, you know, and what you focus on expands, right? So if there's a particular job that you're doing right now and there are elements that you really enjoy, then try and focus more on the joy from those parts of your job, and that's going to help expand those strengths and bring you more happiness, right? So
having that in balance, isn't it? You know, one of the things I get clients to do is think about when they're not at work right now, that when, you know, when they're nice and relaxed somewhere, write down all the things that bring them joy, the things that they enjoy doing, whether that's in work or out of work, and then write down all the things you don't enjoy, the things that zap your energy. And then go back over the list and say, of these things that bring me joy, if they weren't part of my everyday life, I would be sad. And then look at the things that you don't like doing and go, if these were part of my everyday life, I'd be sad. Because we don't get to do everything we want, and we do sadly have to do some things we don't enjoy. But understanding our outliers, understanding the things that really hype our energy and the things that really zap our energy, enable us to plan better. If we've got to attack something that is something that's going to zap our joy, try and intersperse it with something that we know is going to really catapult it, and vice versa. And that way you can manage your energy levels better.
Yeah. And I do that on a daily basis, right? Like, if there's something that I'm really not enjoying, I'll put my tools down and go and do something that I do enjoy to bring the joy back into my life. And then I can go back to that task with a new focus and a new happiness. And then it happens again. It's like a continual thing of going in, doing something you don't like and going, all right, I'm going to take a break. And then you go back into something else. And, you know, we're going through it, right? We're not going to talk about that. But
you've been working with me, don't you?
What's that?
You've been working with me. It's like
no, it's nothing to do with you.
Oh, yeah.
It's nothing to do with you. It's to do with certain tasks that we both don't like that much, right? And they're real fiddly, just annoying things. Anyway, I'm not going to moan. These things are set to try us, right? So exactly, to grow. And excuse me. But being around encouraging people, that helps all of these keys. It helps us to master our mindset, to find encouragement, to find someone we can talk to. It is just massive. And they say you're the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most, right? It was 10 at some point, but now it's 5, I think. That's what they say. And I believe in that. I think if you hang out with people who don't inspire you, who frankly aren't interested in things that you're interested in, then you're going to slowly decline, really, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier in that you will borrow your belief in something else that you've done. And the beauty of being surrounded by people that love, trust, respect, and believe in you is that you can borrow their belief. And those moments where you're like, oh, I'm not really sure I can do this. Thinking back to, and I know we've used this analogy before, but I learned a lot since becoming a mum. And we kind of look at it and say, if we got up in the morning, we had to learn how to walk or talk or run or jump or skip, we'd be a bit overwhelmed. We'd all be overwhelmed. And yet at our most vulnerable, we learn how to do that. And we learn how to do it because of 3 things. The first is the second is because we don't really know how to say no and mean it. We're too small. Even a toddler tantrum runs out of steam eventually. And the third is, whenever you've seen anybody learning to walk, the people around them are there going, come on, sweetheart, you're so close. You can do this. I believe in you. So I think surrounding ourselves with people who inspire us and believe in us is vital to our mindset, because we can borrow their belief until we find our own.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't add any more to that, I'm afraid. But so this is a big one, right? E is number 5 is a really big one, yeah. And knowing an end game and having a focus on that is just it's empowering, right? Like when you draw up that 5-year plan. I mean, we drew up a 5-year plan. We sat down. We got a whiteboard out, and it's the only time we've ever used a whiteboard, because I know you don't like whiteboards and you don't really like planning. You just like to do stuff, yeah? But in this context, a 5-year plan was really enjoyable because it wasn't getting down into the nitty-gritty, into the details, which most of the time you don't need a plan for, not us anyway. We just go and do them, right? But like literally focusing on that end goal and saying, well, this is where we're heading. And then going, well, okay, year 1, this is what we're going to aim for. Year 3, we're going to aim for that. And year 5 is just, it's just fantastic. It gives you a whole sense of freedom. And, when I spoke to Michael Tobin, OBE, about this, he basically said that, it's not going to stop you getting Ubered on the way, right? It's not going to you're not going to, basically, if you make this plan, and it's too detailed, and there's always going to be things that come up along the way which may speed it up or slow it down. But as long as you're aiming to that 5-year point, you're going to get there, right?
Well, yeah, it reminds me, I said I wouldn't do any more quotes, but you know me. It reminds me of a couple of things. If you don't know where you're going, any path will get you there. So you've got to have an idea of your direction. And the second thing is that obstacles are the things we see when we take our eye off the goal. So actually, when we're focused on where it is we're going to go, then our subconscious brain starts to seek out opportunities for us. Whereas if all we start doing is looking at the obstacles, our subconscious brain finds them for us, because we find what we focus on.
Very much so. So what is the secret then, Kim, to reframing negative thoughts?
So for me, I think the first thing is you've got to acknowledge what's happening. So your subconscious brain is your happiest little helper, but it doesn't understand the difference between if it's helping or if it's harming. So if you say to it, I'm not very good at this, it will go back into the library of your brain and it will find all the times you got it wrong. And it'll bring them back and it'll share them with you. Yeah, you're right, Kim, you're rubbish at this, stop it. And you have to go, okay, I get that wrong. Good to know. Are there any times where I get it right? Because again, your subconscious brain will run back into the library of your brain and it will come back with all of the times when you got it right. So you can then go, okay, so I can get it wrong, but I can get it right. Based on these new facts, what choice am I going to make? And for me, as you know, my North Star is my little girl. And as a biased mum, I think there's nothing in the world that little girl can't do as long as she's kind and she tries hard. And so now what I do is I say to myself, right, okay, I can get it wrong, I can get it right. If this were Scarlett, what advice would I give her? Well, I'd say, be kind, try your hardest and go for it, sweetheart. What's the worst that can happen? And if that's what I'd say to the person that I love the most, I have to take that advice myself, because children don't learn just by what we do. They learn by what we say. They learn by what we do and what we say. So if I say it to her and don't do it, I'm not going to teach it to her. So I now force myself to take the advice I'd give her. And so far, in the main, it's good advice.
Yeah, it's so important to reframe these thoughts, right? And sometimes we have to look backwards. Yeah, we have to look backwards and say, well, actually, where was I a year ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? And actually, could I imagine the life that I've created and what I'm doing now? And if you went back to that time, that is kind of inspirational. If you think about talking to yourself back then and telling them what you're focusing on now and what you're doing, that is a really interesting conversation to have with yourself, because it opens your mind up to the potential opportunities that you're going to have in the next year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years of your life. And actually, you know what, I used to always get annoyed. My dad would always say, you need a corporate plan and you need these things. And I just wouldn't believe him. But you know what, 5 years, actually, it goes by pretty quick. And if you've got that plan and you're working towards it, it's gonna just turbocharge your life, right? And help you to master your mindset and achieve your dreams. Exactly. Monkey see, monkey do is what Dirk says. Exactly, Dirk.
So true, Dirk. And you're right. I think, you know, if we know where it is that we're heading, then actually it allows our subconscious brain to help us get there, because the challenge that we've got is our subconscious brain is dealing with thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of things. So it filters stuff out from us. There used to be a game, and it is actually called Kim's Game. I promise I've not made up that it's called Kim's Game. It was probably back in the 70s, and it used to be a children's party game where you'd have a tray of objects and you would have to try and memorize them, and then they'd take the tray away, they'd remove an object, and you had to work out what it was that had gone. And the reason it works is because we filter out things that aren't of interest to us. If we were sat in the same room and were asked to describe it, we'll describe it slightly differently, not because we're liars, not because we're trying to get it wrong, but because we will have seen the things that actually appeal to us based on our viewpoint, based on our experiences and what our subconscious brain is looking out for. So actually giving ourselves a direction to head in allows us to get our subconscious brain heading us in the direction we want to go in. And if we think about the fact that our conscious brain can only deal with between 5 and 9 things, actually the majority of what we do in life is driven by our subconscious brain. So the more that we can do to create a picture of where we're heading, the more information we give our subconscious brain to get it looking for those opportunities. We'll all have heard of those things where we say we'll want to go and buy a white car, and all of a sudden every car you go past in the street is the white car of the brand that you want it to. It's not because all of a sudden there's so many more white cars that are out on the road. It's because your subconscious knows it's important to you. So every time one comes into view, it goes, oh, that's interesting, this. I'm gonna make him aware of it. So I think that for me is why, from a psychology point of view, having a plan, having a sense of direction can really help us, because it allows you to channel in all of your brain power, not just your thinking brain.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, I remember that, you know, years ago, they always used to say, oh, you only use 5% of your brain. Like, that's what they used to say, right? And consciously, yeah. But they didn't say, oh, well, your subconscious is working, and actually it's going to create like some amazing things in your life. Like, no one ever said that. They were just kind of in awe of this kind of iceberg, mentality, like underneath the surface, like what's your subconscious like doing, right? And it's creating opportunities and connections, and it's filtering through the people that you know and what you've spoken to them about in the past. And once you combine that with the technology we have these days to pretty much contact anyone in the world, yeah, and you're not always going to get a response, but if you write a good message, you're going to create massive success in your professional life, right? Which then in turn makes you happier in your private life, because these elements of your life, they are not independent, right? Like your health, your exercise, your everything, you know, your finances, everything is connected. And once you work on one and you make that better, you can work on the others, and then you develop a really nice, enjoyable life to live, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely, because everything's interconnected, because everything in our life revolves around us. We are the center of our own universe. Now, that doesn't mean to say we're more important than anybody else, but we're our only constant. We're the only person that is with us the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep. And we're sadly the only person guaranteed to be there on the day we were born and the day we die. So we are our constant companion. And I think, therefore, our subconscious brain and our conscious brain is constantly looking out for how to keep us safe. And it does more than we know it does. I mean, we'll all have had those moments, won't we, where you turn up on the drive and you think, I'm not really sure what the last minute was. You know, I'm not really sure about every step. that we've just taken on that journey, but we still got home safely. And that's because our subconscious brain has got our back. It kicks in and puts us almost into autopilot at certain moments to help keep us safe.
Yeah, very much so. And I think my subconscious must have talked to LinkedIn. They gave me a 50% discount on my next 2 months. How cool is that, right? I went to cancel, right? And then this box pops up. It says, hey, would you like 50% off of 2 months? And I was like, Kim would like that.
Kim loves a bargain. I love it.
Well, it's either that or you sign up for a year, right? And you get a good discount, yeah. But like the mindset is so important. Like no one wants to hang out with like boring people, like, and negative people. Like, you know, like if people complain too much, right? Like it rubs off onto you, and it's almost like it permeates your skin, and like it can get in your brain and like just mess you around, right? And like, why would you hang out with people like that complain all the time? Like, it's weird.
I know, but the problem is pity loves a party, doesn't it? So, you know, if I'm feeling sorry for myself, I want to go and find other people that feel sorry for themselves, because it means I don't actually have to change anything. I don't actually have to take accountability. And I'm conscious that we've gone way over. So I'm going to end my diatribe with yet another quote. But I think you can find a quote in life from anywhere. And this most recent one comes from Frozen 2, to be fair, because I watch a lot of Disney with a 5-year-old. And it says, actually, you just need to take the next right step. And I love that. You might not be able to answer the whole problem, but if you can see one way of just edging yourself forward, take it, because you don't know what else is going to come into view by keep edging forward. And as long as we keep moving, then we stand a chance of achieving what we want to.
Very much so. And thank you everyone for watching, and God bless.
Take care.